Welcome to Section 31, episode number 326. I'm Dan Hammond.
And I am Rogue Schindler.
This week, it's been a while since we've chat, so a couple things have happened since then. In the first edition side, we had a couple of rounds of errata, one official December errata, and one 3 cards got kind of polishing up after the release of Terran Empire. There was also a movie that we both saw of a different fandom, but we can talk about that as well. What would you like to start with?
Well, let's look at these errata while I've got it up. I have actually not had a chance to look at these yet, so this is the first time I'm seeing these. It's some interesting cards to have been brought up. Many old cards.
Yes, old cards. So if there's under the rules resources, there's a new, just recent updates page of the actual cards. Unfortunately, for some reason, that don't link to the actual cards in the articles, which I think is kind of annoying.
Huh. Yeah.
But that's fine. You can open up the PDF. Artist put together just a PDF of just the cards that were errated. So in order on the PDF document starts with Rashawn Uxbridge. If I'm not mistaken, Rashawn has pretty much zero real gameplay change. Previously, since there wasn't originally a personnel named Rashawn, the old version of the text just said Kevin Uxbridge can cancel Rashawn. Well, now there's a Rashawn personnel. So if you played a Rashawn Uxbridge on an event to protect it from Kevin Uxbridge, then Kevin Uxbridge could not only cancel the event that was protecting the other event, you'd have to play 2 of them to kill the event that you wanted, but could also discard the personnel card, which was a weird interaction. Probably fine. I think we talked about it when we were releasing the cards originally. Somebody brought it up very late in the process, and we were like, well, sure, he can make his recreation of his wife disappear. That's something Kevin Uxbridge could do.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Trek lore, that would make sense.
But gameplay, mechanic-wise, it
does not.
It does not follow. So it's been updated, so now you just play that on top of an event. The event that you played it on top of is immune to Kevin Uxbridge. So, again, you'd have to play 2 Kevin Uxbridges, one to cancel Rashawn Uxbridge, and the other to actually cancel the event that you're protecting.
Sure.
All right. The next one is Release This Pain. And, boy, have you played a Cybok deck ever?
I've tried to build one a couple of times, and it just was so much work. That I always end up scrapping it. I never actually made it to the table.
Yeah. So previously, it added 1 to X on the discovery of Shaka Ray for every one you played. Now it doesn't do that anymore. Now it adds Cybok to their lore, and so if you look at Discovery of Shaka Ray, which is from the same set. Now that card already says adds 1 to X for every personnel in the mission attempt.
Okay. So you have to. They will have Cybok in their lore, and you could just.
So it adds it to their lore. So now,
which they have to work together.
Right. Exactly.
And then they go and okay.
So instead of playing a bunch of these all over the space line and having your people scattered everywhere, and then going to discover Shaka Ray and saying, well, all those people add 1 to X, so I'm solving this for 100 because I've got 10. Now, those people actually have to be in the mission attempt at the mission.
Oh, that's good.
Makes sense?
Yeah, you actually have to risk something to get something.
Precisely.
Good change.
Yeah. All right. Next up is Brain Drain.
That's an old headache, no pun intended.
Yeah. That was always one that was just annoying. It was never annoying enough that I felt like putting a bunch of them in a deck to use on people, but someone would inevitably bring, the Brain Train deck. And yeah, it's just I'm trying to remember what the old one does, but now it plays once every turn on any crew or away team. Remove all skills and cunning from 1 personnel present until end of turn. or play as an in-phase plasma creatures, doubling effects. I think. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to look it up. This was from what set?
AU.
Of course, Brain Drain. All right, so previously you could only play one, or you could play as many as you want. So if you had 10 of them,
right,
you could play it on everyone in the turn, everyone in the away team.
And just lock out. I'm sorry, you don't have any anthropology you can't solve.
Okay, and it used to say any one personnel, so you could play it, and then the opponent would have to show you all of their personnel, and then you get to pick one to play it on.
Right,
which is
sure.
the weird.
So you don't even have to play 10. You just have to play.
Yeah, and then you get to look, right. So now you have to choose a crew or away team to play it on, and then you get to look at the people in that crew or away team, and you still get to remove everything from one person.
Which is pretty good, especially if you have a better idea of who they've got.
But you can't look everywhere, and you know everywhere. So yeah, you're right. It's still pretty good. It still doubles interphasic plasma creatures, which sure.
Sure. Especially if you're already using it with Shades of Grey.
Yeah. All right. Next up is a Bajoran Resistance Cell, and that one's from Holodeck Adventures. It got reined in previously. That could go. Your people could just show up anywhere.
Right.
And now it's just Bajor region, right?
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So any Bajor region planet, your facility, you still report directly to your ship or your facility if they're resistance. So any quadrant resistance can still report to any quadrant resistance.
That's still really good, reporting to the ship. I don't think they could do that before, so I think that's a good conceit to still enable this power. But instead of going to any planet anywhere.
Yeah, I think that looks like the only change. It said previously report free to your Bajoran facility or ship or to any planet, and now it's just Bajoran region. So you can't play. Yeah, you can't have.
I guess I never noticed the fact that it was any ship before, because you could go to any planet and it didn't matter.
It didn't matter. So the previous way of mashing up Bajoran resistance with just about anyone is, who cares? You know, they can always. You don't even need a Bajoran outpost, right?
You don't need a facility of any kind.
No, they just show up at Earth, right? And then you can use it with first contact feds or whatever, which was the flavor of the week. Now you'd actually have to play with a couple of Bajoran region planets to make it worthwhile. Yeah, okay, that's pretty good.
That's great.
I think they're still strong.
Yeah, it's still very strong for Bajorans to give them another engine. It's still very strong for Cardassians like to play in the Bajor region. I had a really strong Ferengi deck that used to play in the Bajor region. Anyone who wants to hang out at DS9 is still going to be good with this. Heck, the Fed Bajoran, all the DS9 engine stuff will still be good with this. So yeah, still a strong card, but not, throwing every deck strong.
Agreed. All right. Next up on the list is operate wormhole relays, but we'll skip that one and come back to it. Hawk and Council was a pretty quick one. Previously in the before time, TOS mirror personnel were always passed, right?
Right.
Except for a few rare cases.
Very rare cases, but
right.
I can't even think of any. That's how rare they were.
Yeah, exactly. And also, there was not a card that allowed personnel to report ignoring their mirror quadrant icon.
Right. There was no crossover reversed.
Exactly. So when we put the reverse crossover out, all of a sudden, since this didn't originally have the past icon on it, those people who were TOS but not past could report here and as native if they were ignoring their mirror icon. So you could play Jadzia to the Hawk and Council as as native if she was ignoring her mirror.
Right.
Which didn't. I mean, there's a lot that doesn't make sense there, but particularly since it wasn't passed, it didn't really fit the theme. Now you can report with the new version. You can still report, let's say, Mr. Spock ignoring his mirror icon. He still has the past icon and the TOS icon, so he could report natively here, ignoring the mirror icon.
Which still makes sense.
Yes, but you can't do it with the random DS9ers with the
undercover.
TOS icon. Exactly. All right, that makes sense. So let's go to this last one. Operate wormhole relays. All right. This looks, the text box is nothing like the original. So the reason is the text box on the original was rendered completely useless by the errata of wormhole, right? Because it used to say, it used to be a tool that if someone wormholed your ship to, vacation on Montana, you could flip this over, the wormhole stayed in play, and you can use them to fly back.
Yeah,
right?
Just hold open the hole. Hold open the wormhole so you can go back and forth.
So with the errata of wormhole, so that you can only play it on your own ship, it was never possible to use that card. The other thing that it previously did was downloads of the Bajoran wormhole can't be canceled, which was always played in the doorway phase most of the time. I suppose it's possible you could stock them in your deck and just have them open midway through the game, but that doesn't seem very likely.
Yeah.
Why would I guess you could save a seed slot if you really needed one, but if you were counting on getting to the delta to the gamma quadrant, I can't imagine not seeding it. Right?
Unless you had a very specific strategy where you didn't want your opponent to be able to get to you in the gamma quadrant or to get the gamma quadrant without you.
Wow, you know what's funny? Going back and reading Bajoran Wormhole, it doesn't actually seed. So back in the day, you'd have to play things that downloaded the wormhole.
Right.
That wasn't right away, right?
Well, I mean, it's much easier now because we have the first stable wormhole. It was a little easier once Mirror came out because the Mirror wormhole seeds and downloads 2 wormholes. So even if you weren't playing Mirror Universe, you could still play Gamma Alpha and get both wormholes in the seed phase that way.
Okay. So, but the point is, at some point in time, it was very important that if you were planning on playing them and you had to play them from your deck, you really wouldn't want them to be canceled because that would hose you even more.
Yes, that is true.
Well, that time is long past because, of errata to the wormhole. So now, you use this card in a tournament because even though it was blank, because it was still a ref card, and you could download it with Q the Ref or Tribunal of Q, and then discard it, putting it in your discard pile for the dilemmas that get better the more objectives you have in your discard pile.
Exactly.
Right. Well, that seemed kind of silly to me.
It in fact was very silly. I wish it was my idea, but I totally stole that.
So at some point during the testing for Project Sloan, what turned into Terran Empire, we had a bunch of cards that were designed to allow travel to the Gamma Quadrant, the Delta Quadrant, and make it a lot easier. Just one more card. There was talk way back before we did TNG and back before like at the times of Four Shades of Grey, before the first set came out, when we were kind of playing plans, big grand theory of things. What would be there was a lot of proponents of let's make the Gamma Quadrant wormhole seed for free, just every game. You got wormholes to the Gamma Quadrant, wormholes to the Mirror Quadrant, and we'll make a new version. Yeah, we'll make a new version of wormhole negotiations, right? Wormhole negotiations 2. That is the other side of the Barzan wormhole, and the Barzan wormhole seeds for free in the Delta Quadrant, right? So you start off the game with the ability to travel to any quadrant, right? Interesting, but there was enough there was enough pushback that we said, all right, well, we'll just punt this, and then once we do the Gamma Quadrant stuff, we'll figure out a way of doing at least the Gamma Quadrant stuff really easy. So if you wanted it, you can get it out and you don't have to worry about it. Well, the testing, the work for the Delta Quadrant stuff kind of went away. So during the testing of Project Sloan, we bought about this entire package of 5 or 6 cards, I think, that had, no, 2 or 3 cards that had a way of getting Bars and Wormhole out, we went back and forth. There was a new mission that was like a Wormhole Negotiations 2 that was the Alpha Terminus of the Bars and Wormhole. And then there was a second mission, right, that was in the same region as Wormhole Negotiation. So you'd always play it right next to it, and that would be the terminus spot. So you just play this mission, and you can always come back to it. And the mission let you download, the objective that made it kind of like not necessarily a permanent wormhole, but you could always get the Bars and Wormhole back to where you really needed to, if for paying a price, right? Your opponent can move the Bars and Wormhole to the Delta Quadrant, from the Delta Quadrant to the Gamma Quadrant, and completely destroy you, right? If you were planning on going back and forth, there was an alternate way of moving it back again. Discard a couple cards, or lose some points or something. Play a Latin and pay off. I don't remember, but it all was very complicated, and we would have had to errata Wormhole Negotiations to make it a region. And after all that, it kind of just boiled down to, why don't we just make one card, right? One new card that kind of does the things that it'll let you move through the Gamma Quadrant wormhole. It'll let you go to the Delta Quadrant. Might as well throw in the bit about the moving through network gateways as well. And if that the original Barzan thing was just one little ship, so maybe we'll just make it 2 or fewer staffing icons. That way the fleets can't go through, right, and take advantage of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the addition of the 2 transport network gateways made me nervous until you mentioned the staffing icon thing.
Yeah. So if you're playing a Borg Scout or Probe, those little itty tiny things that can fly around for 1 green, sure, you can use this for flying around, and you got to use the range on the far side. You got to spend some range to get there, so you can't just move it for free. But sure, if you've got a small ship with all this science and physics and astrophysics on board, not even stopped, right? You can just fly through and keep going. You're using range, so you can't just go back and forth infinitely. But if you got 2 Ferengi on a Ferengi shuttle pod, or was it Data and Geordi that flew through?
Yeah, Data and Geordi.
Yeah. I wonder, they don't have science, do they? They must have had a tricorder with them or something. So the playtest name of this card was Einstein Rosen Bridge, which is another technical term for a wormhole.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? Well, science, physics times 2, and astrophysics are all the skills on Einstein.
Nice.
So he can use this. If you just take your hologram Einstein, he can tell you exactly how to fly through with your tiny ship.
That's great. You can make sure you have a holodeck on your tiny ship.
It's a lot of seed cards. Or
you bring that mobile emitter.
Yeah. So we pushed it through, and testing went well, and this was approved of, and we let Creative know this was going to be the new card for Operate Wormhole Relays, and everyone was pretty happy. I think they were a little less happy because they spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the name of this card was going to be.
Oh.
Well, particularly because it's objective, right? And there were 4 objectives in the Terran Empire, and they were all very specific, A, B, C, D.
Right.
So this had to go around that and either be after it or before it or something like that. Anyway, removed from the set and sent off to the errata team for final work. I think they changed the wording a little bit so that I don't remember it saying "and not stopped" at the end, but that's a good, since most things going through the wormhole stop you, it's a good a little addendum on there. And I think it keeps the flavor of operate wormhole relays with something to keep the wormhole open and keep you safe if someone wormholed you somewhere you didn't want to go. It's kind of a
I still got that
similar
flavor.
vein. Yeah, similar vein of keeping the wormholes open and being able to move through them. So I don't know. I thought it was a good fix. A good fix for a card that was realistically blank and being just used as a blank card with a ref icon, right? And a blank objective with a ref icon. This is a better use of card space without needing to take over a spot in a set or anything like that. It just got a brand new card, does something new, and fill an old spot. I feel like as time goes on, right, and more of the bad cards are errated, and by bad cards I mean cards that were terrible and made, they were referee cards made for them. As time goes on, those referee cards are going to get shorter and shorter and shorter, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the goal, right?
Yeah. Maybe those ref cards turn into something else like this. Maybe, if everything on, right, like say Writ of Accountability, right, gets errated to something that's balanced, and we don't need a card that punishes you for using balanced cards. Maybe Writ of Accountability turns into just something different altogether. Maybe retain the downloaded FCA personnel, because that's kind of cool. But maybe it turns into another card. So that would be fun.
Yeah, that'd be nice if it, you could keep the flavor of it, the same idea, but still be able to, make it useful again. Neat.
Well, with that, after the release of the Terran Empire, there were 3 other cards that were marked in the database as errata, but they're not really errata. They're changes that probably should have caught on the way out the door, but at least one of them was caught by several people, but not the right people. So there's 3 cards in the Terran Empire that got changed. Chief Engineer Tucker, Crewman Biggs, and Ensign Kelby. Ensign Kelby was probably the biggest. Somehow Ensign Kelby turned from a unique to a universal, and that was bad because the mirror version, the non-mirror version, would be a unique, right? And you can't have a unique version in the alpha quadrant, universal in the mirror quadrant. That would just be weird.
Yeah.
So he got updated to remove the diamonds in front of his name, and now he is actually a unique mirror quadrant personnel. That's right, because there is a backwards compatible version of Kelby who is unique. So he had to be made unique, and so he was. And he was unique through most of testing, I think. I think he might have started out as universal, but he was unique through most of testing, certainly starter testing. The other 2 are dramatically less important. So I think I posted this on the boards when someone was talking about this. The story behind Tucker is there's a rule that says, how do you know what species somebody is? Well, you look in their lore. If the lore says, Klingon, then they're Klingon. If the lore says, Romulan, they're Romulan. If the lore doesn't say anything, look at the picture. If the picture looks human, they're human. If the picture doesn't look human and the lore doesn't say, they're not human, they're something else entirely. That's kind of the rules. Since 2E is nice, it has it delineated right in there's a box, instead of right.
Sure.
Well, Tucker went through most of testing all the way up to the end, all the way to the proofing. We got the picture back, and one of the proofers said, "Hey, he's got yuck on his face. Someone might think he's not actually human. Someone who's never watched Enterprise." All right. Well, okay. We have specific rules for this, so I went in and jumped in and said, okay, let's write it out so it's crystal clear. I added a word right in between talented engineer. I added talented human engineer recommended for a position by Admiral Black. And that got sent off to Art, and it was fixed in the final file, and then the file went through production, and was released. At some point, the folks in creative who deal with lore and that kind of thing saw what I did, where it said human, and said, "Come on, Dan, you know this." In the in the mirror quadrant, they're not referred to as humans. They're referred to as Terrans.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't make any difference. In the glossary, it says they're synonyms, but for consistency, it should be Terran. And so they changed it in, the official file. But that little change never made it to art. So the final, that was found before the set was released, but it was never actually updated. So it was released with the word human there instead of Terran. So since we were changing Kelby anyway, we went ahead and changed him to Terran as well. I did a quick search. Human doesn't show up in any mirror quadrant personnel except for Spock, because he's half human. Yeah, exactly. Everyone else references Terran specifically. There's nothing in the game that references Terran yet, but just to be consistent, since we were changing things anyway, we changed Tucker. So now he's a Terran engineer instead of a human engineer. All right, that's fine. I think the last one was even more of a subtle change, but it's right along the same lines. Crewman Biggs, just like checking for species, checking for gender, you do the same thing. You look in the lore. If there's no, pronouns or anything, there's no he or she or him or her or whatever, or male or female, you look at the picture. He could probably go either way. It was not a definite picture. So some folks who had, again, never seen Enterprise were like, is that a guy? Can't tell. So we changed likes to tinker to he likes to tinker, and then all fixed up. That's it.
All right.
Yeah. He changed from questionable gender to definite.
Well, yeah, with that image,
and it's
it could totally go either way.
Other parts of the show, it's obviously a guy, but that particular image, kind of turning in the shadow, he's almost lit like a TOS woman too, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of soft focus there. Yeah.
So, all right. So 3 cards, unfortunately, from the set that I worked on, that didn't quite come out exactly how they needed to be. But there was something else. I don't know. I didn't notice if it was part of the original release or not. But have you opened up the PDF of the Terran Empire?
I have not.
If you download the expansion, the last page, and I don't know if this was in the first version or not, but the last page is 9 copies of the Tactic phase cannons.
Oh, nice. That's a nice touch.
It's a nice touch, and it's absolutely beautiful because there's a big, huge orange shining phase cannons. So excellent.
Oh, yeah, that looks great.
Yeah, right on. All right, so errata. Yeah.
That makes me want to download that and print it out. Very cool. Well, would you be interested to know how many ships can fly around with Albert Einstein?
Oh, who already have holodecks?
Who already have holodecks. There are 12 ships that have 2 or fewer staffing icons.
That's pretty good. I mean, Nebula?
Yeah, all of the Nebula class ships.
Yeah.
So Nebula, Phoenix, Sutherland.
Husnock ship?
No, Husnock is too big.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
There's the Drake. They're almost all Federation. All the Intrepid class ships. So Intrepid, Voyager, and Kazon Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
The Equinox. So a lot of Delta ships. The Olara.
Oh, nice. Oh, perfect.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's really good. Man, that's going to make that Kazon hunting deck really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take the warship through, which was the trick, right? You bring a warship with all the ships on board.
Oh yeah, that's true. So yeah, you just more of the holograms then. The Trollocs, which is a Decora, Ferengi Decora.
Right. Yeah.
The Darmok, if you choose.
Yeah.
Hologram. So there's one for everyone. And also non-aligned, but a little less easy to use, the Mondor, which technically only requires one. It has 2 or fewer staffing icons, fewer. because it requires pack lead, and then likewise the think tank ship.
Right, the think tank ship. That would be amusing. You want to use those in the Delta Quadrant anyway because they have their mission, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Personnel. Okay, interesting. That's a good list. I like that. Or if you're playing holograms, you just drop a holodeck door on the ship, right?
Sure. Yeah, if you're doing it already and you want to do that, but if you're just trying to splash a little Albert Einstein to make that easier, and you don't want to lose the seed card, there are some ships for you.
All right. So you start with the Nebula. How are you going to get? You can't start with the seeded Nebula, can you?
Well, you can always, attentional hands or.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about historical poker match. You got all three. You've already got Einstein.
Oh, sure.
The holodeck. Play a data, and
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, if you're going to do it anyway.
I wonder if you can start with the Trollocs. Is it a Decora?
It is a Decora. Oh yeah, and it doesn't have to be universal, right?
Yeah. So you're fighting your seats. Yeah.
So you could do that.
Post. And then
the Alara. Does the Alara start with something? Isn't there a?
I don't know. I don't think I've played an Alara deck, but all their ships download so easily with.
And if you're playing Delta Quadrant, you can seed Voyager or Equinox or the Alara.
Or their outpost has a holodeck on it.
Right at the Caretaker's Array, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, now I want to build a random Federation holodeck that just jumps around because they can. Go solve an easy mission. Oh, you put in the off-cell vase, right? And do.
Oh, yeah. That's
just do a mission in each quadrant for an extra.
Jump around. That'd be cool. You know who is going to be excited about this? JD. This crazy 4-quadrant deck. Which is a little less crazy now.
Yeah. As long as you're playing with smaller ships, you can get around without too much effort.
Yeah. If you do that, get yourself set up in the Bajor region, and Bajor region mission and the wormhole negotiations, and then you can jump over. Isn't there? There was some stuff that came out in the first part of Mirror Block that helps you, gives you bonus for getting missions on both sides. So you get the off-cell vase going with those and a gamma mission, and so you got options. You don't have to. If you get cut off somewhere, if they're playing Hirogen, you can just say, nope, never mind, not going to the Delta Quadrant. Or if they're playing Dominion, you're like, yeah, never mind, we can steer clear of the gamma.
That's funny. I didn't think about just figuring you're going to do 3 missions. Just choose one quadrant not to bother with.
Yeah.
Just to stay away from the opponent.
Look, the Terran Empire is here. Never mind.
Yeah, never mind. I'll be over here in the Gamma Quadrant. Yeah, awesome. All right. There's an article that's been up for a couple of days. The Texas Chainsaw Masters. Have you seen that?
I saw the headline go by. I have not looked at the article.
So John is hosting a Masters in Texas and putting up some cash. He's hoping to get a lot of people there. But they finally put up, at least I finally noticed, the image that goes with articles. It's the new Klingon Trek Masters background. It's all red instead of because 2016 was all green Romulan. So that's the first art I've seen with the new Klingon. And it looks awesome.
I didn't think about that, but now that you mention it, yeah, that's nice. Wow, I might have to dust off my decks and look at a Masters now.
I was going to say, I kind of went out of my way to play in at least 2 Masters. I think I played in 5 of them. I finally got my hand on one of these Romulan ones. You got to go for the red, man.
Yeah, right? Well, Worlds is not at Gen Con this year, right? That means there's
a
non-zero chance of there being a Masters.
Most likely, yeah. Let's see. Do they have World Championship dates? I think there was an article that came up a little while ago that had just a list of tournaments coming up, championship level events, but I don't see anything in the system yet. Everything's already all from the past year.
Hmm.
All right. Well, very well. I will. Yeah, we'll have to go after that. That sounds pretty good.
Nice.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's cool. That sounds interesting. And I'm going to say, I feel like we had a really interesting, in-depth look at the errata here. And come to think of it, since it's the third full weekend, it's actually only been 2 weeks since the movie came out. So I am fine postponing our Rogue One discussion a week because this has been a pretty decently full show, intelligence-wise. What do you say?
That sounds like a plan. I did find, just briefly, the North American tournament schedule. I suppose there's one for every continent, but this would be the one that was important to us. March 17th and 19th through 19th is North Carolina Masters. Memorial Day weekend, 26th to 28th, is South Dakota Masters. August 17th to 20th, Gen Con Masters.
All right.
And mid-November, the Texas Chainsaw Masters in Denison, Texas. A part of me really wants to go. I mean, mid-November, it's far away from travel. You know, it's probably a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving. It's not expensive to fly into Dallas, right? I mean, we have a friend of ours who just wanted to play in that board game convention in Texas because it's cheap to go to, right?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So spend a day or two just playing with a bunch of people who like to travel, play Star Trek in the middle of Texas. That would be entertaining. I think that would be a new region to play in too.
This is true.
Mid-November could be a league event.
Well, we've got like 10 months to think about it. So.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right, man. Then let's wrap this up, and we will, since we don't have another episode of the animated show or the Peter Pan records or anything, we'll talk about Rogue One next week. How's that sound?
That sounds good. And if you have some thoughts on this errata or other errata that have come up, drop us a line, and we can talk about that and let us know how wrong we are, or we can just open up discussion. In the meantime, it's been 2 weeks since Rogue One came out, 3 weekends. We're going to give you one more week to look at it, but next week it's weapons free. We're going to all spoilers. So if you have not seen the show or seen the movie yet, don't listen to the show next week. All right. Otherwise, go see it, then listen to the show.
Fair enough.
So that's all of our intelligence for this week. In the meantime, I am Sir Rogue.
And I'm Sir Dan.
And I will remind you all to expand your power in the universe.
And I will draw to end.